Hello my friends, my name is Gorilla and welcome back to the channel. Today I'll be going over a 24 Spires I was in just a few weeks ago, and it was a really fun key. For this key I'm going the normal talent build and the normal conduits, and of course, since I'm a Mistweaver doing high M+, I am Ventfear. I think the most important thing to get out of this key is that you don't have to be an Shaman to time Spires, especially in pugs, and I think this is a perfect demonstration of that. But anyways, enjoy the key guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Alright, so we're starting off this key with the normal double pull into the Goliath on the bridge. This is fairly standard, and since it's a fortify week, we are going to lust this pull. Even with lust, this pull is still really scary, so I definitely recommend, if you don't feel comfortable, to use both Chi-Chi and Fawn Order on this pull. It's also a pull where Diffuse Magic is a really strong button, since you can diffuse off that dot, and it does massive damage. Diffuse is also really good this week because it is bursting, so if there are moments where you have insanely high stacks and you need to not only dispel someone else but also yourself, you can diffuse magic those dots off. And thankfully as well for Mistweaver, we have plenty of ways to deal with it. Not just through diffuse and normal dispel, but we also have revival, which is one of the best buttons for it. And so that pack went really smoothly. Now we're just going to finish off that Goliath. I'm just going to touch Death it. And this is kind of just a cooldown pack. With these pulls as well, you really gotta make sure you're watching where the tank is, since there is a frontal. And it's not like the frontals, for example, in halls, which can basically one-shot you. You can still live, but it's definitely better for you to dodge them. Right here, I'd get a drink right before we fly. It's not going to be any time loss or anything, it's just going to be a little beneficial to me. And most of the time inside groups, you actually don't do tormented first, instead we go to the pack. Now this pack is essentially up, so we're going to start moving down to Incinerator to get ready for that. These Goliaths can be really tedious, especially when they start growing their shield. On Incinerator specifically, you don't really need both cooldowns. Chi-Chi or Fallen Order both work to heal through it. It's a lot of damage, but either cooldown will easily heal through it. Right here, Chi-Chi was a little bit overkill, but I'm not going to need it on the boss really, since that fight is not very healer intensive. And inside Spire specifically, I think Sanguine Acre is better just for that final boss, since during intermission it is quite tough to heal, and Sanguine Acre gives you a little extra. Right here, I'm being kind of safe because of the tether. Some tanks and pugs are like very finicky with their movement, and kind of just stepping out of the way so they can get to the next boss is kind of helpful. Not only for yourself, but also everyone else. It's always good to use a defensive when you get the spear. It's not much damage, but it's really the only damage that is going to be dealt to you specifically besides for the dot in this fight. Right here, I revival just to get both debuffs off. I could diffuse magic and then dispelled the other person, but I feel like getting revival on cooldown is not the end of the world. Right here, I use IQD just for the execute. Normally IQD, it has two uses, which is its heal and its execute. The stats are nice, but for the most part, they're not as good. And now boss is done. As we see, Incarnation is up, so we are definitely going to plan to do a big pull. And thankfully for us, either the right or the left has a big pull. This pull is normally very scary for tanks, but normally either a incarned bear or a prop heli has no troubles at all dealing with this pull. At this point, Incarn's running out, so the bear is going to start kiting around. I unfortunately misplaced Ring of Peace right there, since we already had a binding shot down. It was kind of wasted. Right here, I use Chi-Ji because even though this pull seems really small, it is quite the tough pull. Right here, I notice that he has a debuff still from the worm, so I just revival it off. I'm not really going to need revival on any upcoming pulls. And overall, that pull went really, really smooth. Now we're going to run all the way back and we're going to the right side. The right side's not only easier, but it has better pathing for cooldowns. At this point, we see that we have Lust up and we have cooldowns up, so there's not really a point to just do single packs. So we're going to double pack with this Goliath. And this pull does get really, really sketchy, but we do have Incarn and we have Lust, and no one's going to be in any danger. Right there, I ring a piece just to get inside the Hunter's cooldown. It's really not that big of a deal as it only lasted for like an extra second in there, but any damage counts. Right here, everyone's healed up, so I can take a quick drink before we go to the next pack. Right here, I'm just going to take another drink since there's always that pile up. There's not really a point for me to go right ahead. This is another pull where it looks really, really easy, but there is a lot of damage going out. So at this point, we're doing a double pull with the Ether Drivers and our Spear. This pull at first glance is really, really easy, and it, for the most part, is, but some people just don't expect when they pop out, and it can get a little scary from there. Overall, though, this pull went really, really well. Even though I had to use Revival on it because it's a spell, it's not really that big of a deal. This pull right here, a lot of people actually skip nowadays just because it's such a waste of time and it kind of just slows you down. So on the next pull, like a lot of groups do, we decide to just CC majority of the pack, and then just do essentially the squad leader and then the rest of the pack. And this is kind of the problem with in-cap sometimes, because I am going to get aggro on the Ether driver, which is not going to be that big of a deal in the long run. It's just going to be a little scary once he pulls. And once this Praetor dies, or once the squad leader dies, we then pull into the rest. The rest of the pack is a little threatening, but it's really not that scary at all. Right here, using Chi-Ji is just a way for me to be able to spin more and deal with the pack faster. However, if you want to save for boss, you definitely can. The next boss is heavily Chi-Ji favored. Alright, I'm gonna need a little drink before the boss. Tank won't need me for a few seconds. With this fight specifically, I think it's kind of just rotation of cooldowns. You're ranged. Most of the time, you coordinate whether you're going to use a throughput CD like Fallen Order or if they're going to use a defensive. In this case, the Hunter has his file down, and he doesn't really want to use Turtle on it, so I just use Fallen Order. And if you do save Chi-Ji, for example, you could do Chi-Ji first, Fallen Order second, or Fallen Order first, Chi-Ji second, Fallen Order third. It's really all dependent on you. Since I don't have a CD right here, it's kind of just throughput healing. But I am going to bubble him right there, just so I can do more damage. Something that's also worthy to know in this fight is by the end you do want to save some sort of cooldown for the next pack. And this boss is done. A really great tip is you can just stand in the middle, and when this angel comes around, you can jump and grab on it. Saves only a few seconds. It's just a nice little tidbit. So at this point, they were talking about doubling. It's a common strategy, but it's really, really risky. And with Mistweaver specifically, this is such a scary pull. Not because of the actual HPS requirement, we check that every single day, but it's because our Fallen Order, for some reason, if it's placed too high up, it will actually go and aggro those mobs up there. At this point, my tank's gonna pop Incarn, and everyone's kind of low. We kind of went to this like really fast, but Chiji's gonna be able to deal with that pretty well. At that point, I did bubble him, which is kind of unfortunate since he is Kyrian, but it's kind of better to be safe than sorry. DPS sometimes just forget that they have a file, even tanks forget that, so it's better to just place bubble on him than to not. And it kind of hurt me there, like it would have been really nice to have bubble for myself there. On Verse specifically, for powers, Mana Chalice is good, especially on a lot of tyrannical fights. It's definitely not needed on most weeks, and the higher you get up, it's not as worthy. But Champion's Brand is also a great option. Right here, it's always wise to wait for the tank to group these up. Once they're all around the pillar, you can start running up to them. On these spots specifically, there's going to be a lot of bursting, so it's definitely something to be wary of. That's why I did pop Fallen Order here. And once again, we have a lot of stacks, so then I just revival it off. And that's where the Mana Tea kind of helps out just a bit. This fight is pretty simple. It's mostly about stacking and then moving for the most part, and then healing people with the dot. Thankfully in this group we do have a warrior and a mage, which deal with the dot pretty well compared to most other classes. It's always wise to use defensive on these. You won't need them on any other part of the fight. And the robot's down, so now it's time to go full on DPS. Vulnerable definitely was not needed here, but in a way it's kind of a DPS cooldown with the verse. And at this point it's just a repeat of the first phase. At this point the boss is down, and it's time to go on to the final part, which arguably is the hardest part of the dungeon. The first angel here is really easy. There's not really many mechanics for you to actually deal with, it's just to stand behind the boss, since the only thing she's really doing here is a frontal. It's when we go to the next angel now, where it gets a little harder, not by much, but the spears are something that trip a lot of people up. And on Fortified Week, where they kill you much, much faster, it is a little more frightening. At this point, we're kind of running out of space, but the angel is almost dead. It's just going to be kind of close. And this is where the big show is. On most groups you do have Lust and you do have Spear, and it's really not that bad. It still just does a lot of damage in the later stages. Thankfully for this group, we kind of deal with it much quicker than most other groups I see, but even like as you see right here, it is kind of getting close. At this point, we are going to start the boss. Devos is a fight that's not too tough. It gets a little bit harder when you're permaslowed. But, I mean, overall, it's still not that tough of a fight. It's kind of just a balance act of using your cooldowns and dispelling. At this point, we are transitioning. The transition is much easier since you aren't slowed, which for some reason works like that. I don't know why. And to this point where Revival seems like it's the best spot in the world, with its Mass Dispel and Heal, everyone was kind of getting low there, and I was basically out of range for most of that, but Revival still clutched up. And now we're back to the face, so it's a rinse and repeat. Another really nice thing with Chi-Ji specifically is that it does remove the slow buff for you while he's up. So it does make these phases a little bit easier just for you. Luckily for me, again, I get to do the middle orb. It's easily the fastest. At this point the fight is basically dead, we just have a few more mechanics to deal with, and then this key will be an easy upgrade. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. It's been a pleasure. My name is Gorilla, and I'll catch you guys on another one.